Hi you guys, what is up? It's been a little bit since I've been on here, but I would just like to say our baby has been born. He is here, he is healthy, he is so incredibly strong, and my heart is literally 10 times as big. I first just want to say thank you for all of the support and the kind words and the love that you guys have been giving me this past week. I can't thank you enough. It's been truly magical being a mom. I never imagined in my life that I would love it this much. There was actually some fear of being a mom in my pregnancy, whether I'd be cut out for it, whether I'd be okay, what would my life look like. I can honestly say I am the happiest I've ever been. I am 1 week postpartum, and after snuggling and kissing and holding my little man, I am finally ready to share my birth story. Did I have the birth that I wanted? No. Was I disappointed during? Absolutely. But once he was here, it all went away. It didn't matter that it didn't go as planned. It wasn't the way I really truly wanted it. But it's okay because I am madly in love with my son. He is here, he is healthy, I'm healthy, and that's the bottom line, is delivering a healthy baby. So here it goes. So I went into labor the Wednesday night around 9 o'clock. That whole entire day, I was watching 13 Reasons Why because I kind of gave up of just getting him out of there. I was like, you know what, he's going to come in his own time. I'm just going to veg and chill and watch TV shows and not do anything. And my husband comes home and he goes, what are you doing? We got to get this baby here. And so we went for a walk. And when we went for a walk, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go run. I'm going to try to run. And so I was like, I'm going to run to that light, babe. And so I tried running, and I kid you not, I thought I was going so fast, and my husband makes fun of me, and he just speed walks right next to me. Little to say, I really wasn't running. I thought I was running. It's like those dreams where you feel like you're sprinting, but you're really not going anywhere. That's literally how I felt. So I did that throughout our walk. We walked probably like 3 miles or so. And during the 3 miles, I was getting really tight Braxton Hicks. They were strong, they were kind of intense with cramps. So I was like, maybe it'd be it. It was like every 7 minutes or so, and so I was like, it could be it, it could not. I had so many false alarms the previous week, so I kind of was like, I have no idea if I'm going to labor or not. We came home, I drank some raspberry tea, and then TMI, how we got the baby, we did the same thing, and around 10 o'clock, right after immediately we had our special time together, I started getting more intense cramps. Like it was like almost like more of a stabbing pain. And I was like, well, that's different. And my husband was like, but does it take your breath away? And I was like, no, not really. But it's definitely more intense. Because my husband works with OBs on the daily. He's in the surgery room with him, so he's always getting information from OBs about what labor is like or pregnancy, etc. So he has a very good knowledge of all of that. And he goes, but does it take your breath away? And I said, no, it really kind of doesn't, but it does sting a little bit. And probably 30 minutes after that, these stinging cramps got more severe, and I was like, you know what, this might be it. They're actually like, I had to double over on one, like stop walking and like in the bed, and I was like, okay, that one hurt. And as I kept talking about it, we were talking about it, and I was like, they kept coming around 5 minutes, like to the dot, and I was like, I think this is it. And then they started getting pretty strong, and at this point, both Josh and I were like, we're in labor. So we started timing them just to make sure, because we were told that once they are 3 minutes apart, that's when we should head to the hospital, because that means you're most likely in active labor and you're about 4 centimeters dilated. So our plan was to birth as much as possible at home, because I wanted an unmedicated birth with no intervention. My whole entire pregnancy, I researched about it. I knew all about the tips and the tricks and the benefits it has for baby to be unmedicated, and that was really where I had my heart set on. And I did all the mental preparation for it, you know, the fighting of your uterus with oxytocin and adrenaline and staying calm and keeping your mouth relaxed and no fear, and I was so ready for it. And so then they got really strong, and so they were about 3 minutes apart, and I got in the shower, and I labored in the shower probably for about an hour and a half, and I put on praise and worship music, and it was like, I'm starting to tear up, the most beautiful thing, like, yes. It was like a connection, I could feel him, and I was so excited to be able to to be able to birth them naturally, I was like, oh yeah, I got this. Like, I think this is more like postpartum emotions, you know, they're pretty heightened. But it was like, it was magical. Like, I was able to feel the intensity of the contractions, but yet they weren't painful, and they were, at this point, probably 2 to 3 minutes apart. So we called, the water actually got really cold, so I was like, oh shit. I was like, because this was like where I wanted to be, was in the shower, like music, praise and worship blaring, and it was so great. And so we called my photographer, Rachel, and was like, this is it, you know, you can come over to our house and then we'll go to the hospital together. Because I had labored about 2.5 hours, so it was probably about 1 o'clock at this time, and so we had no idea where I'd be dilated or whatnot, but we knew that since they were 2 to 3 minutes apart, I was in inactive labor, and we had no idea where we were going to go. So we drive to the hospital, and in the car I had about 3 major, huge contractions that were pretty intense, and my husband was right there with me the whole time. Oh yeah, I'd backtrack a little bit. During this time, waiting for Rachel for about 45 minutes, we walked in our cul-de-sac. And every single time we hit a spot in the cul-de-sac, it was timed immediately. I would have a contraction at the 3 parts. And we did that for about 45 minutes until Rachel got here. And then we decided, since they were really close together, that we needed to head to the hospital. We get to the hospital, and all the books I read told me that your mood can change, and it's okay if like your cervix closes a little bit more, because I genuinely didn't want to have my birth in a hospital, but I also knew that me and my husband needed to be on the same page in order to deliver a healthy baby emotion-wise, and he felt more comfortable at a hospital for our first birth, and deep down it was the best thing that could have happened for us. But we get to the hospital, and right when I got there, the nurses there were not the kindest, and that kind of like started to change my demeanor a little bit. Like, right when I got there, I had a major contraction right in front of them, and they were trying to get me to answer questions in front of them while I'm like heaved over, like trying to breathe and focus and like stay calm. And they were like, hello, like, come on, like, and my husband was like, I'll just sign for her, and they're like, no, she needs to sign herself. And so once I signed, I was like, okay, it's fine, I'll regroup, we're fine. We get in the labor room, they started demanding me and telling me to go certain places. And she goes, we first need to check you. How much did your doctor say you were last time? And I said, my doctor last time said I was 3 centimeters, you know, dilated. My cervix was really soft, and she could feel baby's head. And so she checks me, and she's like, there's no way you're 3. You're like a 2 centimeters. And that, just like her tone and everything, it was like she was pleased to tell me I wasn't dilated further. Almost broke my spirit. I was like, wow, I just labored for like 3.5 hours at home. That's really crazy to me. And that, just the way she said it was terrible. So she goes, so what we can do, she said, was you can either labor at home, you can go home, or you can stay here and see if you can get in active labor, and then we can keep you. So I was like, I'll just stay here because I really don't want to go home, because having contractions in the car was terrible. No position felt good. They were more intense, and the pain actually was more intense in the car. So I said, you know what, we'll labor here, it's fine. You guys have the bathtub and all that. So they had to put the monitors on me just to get a baseline of where baby was at and how strong my contractions were. So I labored for 2.5 hours with my husband at the hospital. And then she comes in, and every time she came in, she didn't even address me. She ignored me flat out. And if she had to answer questions for like their protocol, she would not even care that I was in a contraction and expect me to answer while I was in contractions. Like, she was so impatient. And then if she did come in, it was not about me, but she just would look at the monitor and then walk right back out. And so that was just really hard. You know, like when you go to a hospital, typically you want encouragement from the nurses, or how are you feeling? I didn't get any of that. And so when she checked me again, she checked me and she goes, nope, you're still at a 2, maybe 3. And I was like, wow, they're intense. I have a very high pain tolerance. I mean, I didn't cry with my dislocated elbows, and I was fine. So I know my contractions and pain was pretty relevant. And she goes, you're simply just not, there's just simply not strong enough. You're not strong enough to make them dilate. And I just like, that broke me. And so then she goes, but I have been in labor and delivery for many, many years. She was probably like in her 50s, and she said, I used to birth at a birthing center where we did water births. Go home, get in your bath, you know, that'll dilate you. You know, and I was thinking in my mind, you're giving me all this advice now after I just labored for this long. Why didn't you do this before when I was here at the hospital while we have a hub, and I could have done that all here. So I was like, you know what, I don't want to labor with this nurse anymore. So I was like, we're going to go home. And then from that moment on, my demeanor like just dropped. Just the praise and worship, like getting my mind back in the right gear was really incredibly hard. So me and my husband go home, and by this time we've been up from 9 o'clock to 5 a.m. and I had no sleep. So I was exhausted at this point. So my husband's like, you've got to try to nap. So we lay in bed, and by this point my contractions were now 3 to 4 minutes apart, and they were pretty severe. And I laid in bed, and they were excruciatingly painful. I could not get out the pain, so I mentally just had to focus on centering in my uterus and the contraction and just breathing through the contractions. And my husband was pushing on my hips the whole time, and every 4 minutes we'd try to doze off and sleep to get some sleep, and then the contraction came and we'd work together. So we did that for another 2 hours. All the times are blending in. So we did that for a while, and then I would get into the birthing tub, but my bathtub was really hard to labor in because it was skinny, so I couldn't find a position that was really comfortable, but the water felt amazing. So I was in like this dilemma. So I got in the hot tub, and I'd go back in the bed, and I'd get in my bathtub, and finally I was like, okay, let's get my clothes on, let's go to the hospital. And then we go downstairs, and he had to let my dogs out, our dogs out, and I get back on the birth ball, and I was like, oh, this feels good. So I was able to go through a contraction on that ball by myself without my husband like severely pressing into my hips. And then I realized that moaning like a cow, really deep and serious, really helped flow through the contractions. And then they started getting 2 minutes apart. So we labored that way for another hour or so. And by this time I was like, I've got to have dilated. There's no way like I wouldn't have dilated. So we get to the hospital. We're walking out, well, first we get to the car, and I had a major contraction, and I think my neighbors heard me because they walked and stared because I was like in the most intense contraction, heaved over the back of the car like moaning like this cow in so much pain, and my husband's behind me just trying to console me like, breathe through it, you've got this, breathe. And so then we get in the car, and the car was the terrible, like the most, it took it out of me. I had 4 or 5 major contractions in the car that literally, like, I thought my uterus was being stabbed and torn in half. It was so painful, and a part of it was my mindset. I was emotionally drained, I was tired, I was just not in the mindset that I really should have been in, like I was at the beginning of my labor. And so we get to the hospital, and I was like, okay, good. But then as soon as I got on the elevator, I started just bawling because I was like, what's if this nurse is here? What's if I get in there and I'm not dilated? Like, it's going to be terrible. And I just couldn't keep it. But when I got there, the nurses were 180% different. They were like, breathe through the contraction, we'll wait. Like, you know, and I got in there, and the nurse, I had another contraction, and before putting me on monitors, whatever, she was helping me through the contraction, and it was so much better. And so she checked me, and she goes, you're at a 4.5, 5. And I was like, oh yes, I got this, I can go. And so then I started to get my mindset back, and I started to labor. So me and my husband labored for 2 hours at this point, 2.5 hours more at this point. And so now we are, and I asked, they were getting to the point where like they were so intense. And the hospital environment just wasn't quite right for me, because I didn't feel like I could be myself in moaning, even though I was moaning really hard and trying to relax and breathe through them, and the nurses were great. I still held on to the morning time. Oh, and I forgot to mention what else broke me is when I told her I wanted to do a home birth, she told me don't do that. My daughter-in-law's babies died. So when she told me a baby died during like labor and delivery as I was in labor, it shot me. So that was another piece that like I held on to. So when I came back, I was holding on to that. And so the nurse comes back. Where was I even at? So, but anyways, 2.5 hours later, she asked to check me just to see if I progressed anymore from 4.5 to 5. So I've been in an unmedicated birth now for 14 hours. I was emotionally drained, emotionally tired, and she comes and checks me, and she goes, no, you're still barely at a 4.5, 5. And I just was broken. So I needed to make a decision. I said, I can tough this out and be in pain, but if I am not dilating the way I need to dilate after 14 hours and I'm still at a 5 in excruciating pain, I needed to put my pride down. And I thought, if I try to do this, what are the chances I'm going to be able to push as a first-time mom, not experiencing it, my baby out and risk him, you know, getting a C-section or whatnot, which was the last thing that I wanted was a C-section. So I put my pride down and I said, okay, I'll get the epidural. So the nurse comes in and she gives me the epidural, and I started bawling to my husband like I feel like I failed. I wasn't able to do it. Hormones, you know. But he just stood by my side, and it was really, really beautiful. And so we got the epidural, and I was like, oh man, this feels great. Like, I got this. So they put me on the epidural for another 2 hours and came and checked me, and my body was still at a 5. So then they broke my waters to try to speed things up. By the way, when they break your waters, TMI, it felt warm. I never anticipated it to be like this gush of warm water. Hi baby, he felt my emotions. So it was a gush of warm water, and so they did that, and then shortly after that, my bloody show. And TMI, like, this is a lot. I always thought the bloody show was like a little blood. It was crazy amounts that came out. So they broke my waters, and then hoping that would speed things up, they come back and check me another hour later. I was still at a 5. And I was like devastated, like just hearing that same thing, like your body's not dilating, and I was like, maybe I'm just not meant to deliver a vaginal birth. Maybe my baby's saying something that, you know, he doesn't want to come out that way. So we started doubting it a little bit. Then the nurse comes in, she goes, let's just put you on Pitocin, a small amount, to see if we can increase the intensity of your contractions. So they put me on Pitocin, and just a little bit, and 2 hours later I dilated to a 6. So they said, okay, we're progressing. Long story short, at this time they put me on Pitocin, checked me 2 hours later, I was still kind of at a 6. And so they're like, we need to up it. So they upped it, and finally, during this time, when I was at like a 6 for about 4 hours on Pitocin, I was emotionally done, and my husband saw that. So he goes, Hannah, we need to focus. I don't know your guys' religion, but we're pretty strong Christian. We're strong Christians. We have faith, and we just put our hands over my belly and together, and just got in praise and worship and started praying over my body. Like, cervix, you dilate. Cervix, you open up. You do what you're supposed to do. And the nurse now comes back, and then I'm dilated to a 7.5, and then it became an 8. So every 2 hours, or every hour, I was finally dilating, and they were checking me every 2 hours. By midnight, I finally dilated to a 10, and I was ready to go, and she could feel his head, and he was where he needed to be. And so she goes, all right, we're going to start pushing. So 24 hours later, 25 hours later, my time is all off. So 25 hours later, because we started at 9 o'clock, I started pushing, and within, they prepared me to just say, hey, just your first time mom, it's probably going to take you 2.5 hours, 2 hours to probably push the baby out. Just mentally prepared for it. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, all I want is water, I'm thirsty, I haven't eaten anything in 24 hours really, I'm starving, like I'm thirsty, but I was like, I got this. And then 26 minutes later, my little Jaden was born. I hardly tore. The only reason I tore is because, as you guys know, my baby's pretty stubborn with the ECV and not wanting to turn, and then being late. He, as I was coming out, decided to turn on his own, and as he was turning on his own, his nose came up and slightly tore on the inside. I think I got 1 stitch. But it was the most incredible feeling. Finally pushing him out, and you know, like that whole entire process, I remember them saying, reach down and feel his head. They said, and I was just feeling his head, and then I was like, he has hair, and it was the most surreal feeling in the whole entire world. And when they said, this is your last push, come on, give it everything you have. And I just remember like grabbing my legs and gritting down and being like, ah! Screaming, you know, like not screaming, but just getting him out, like giving it everything I had, like every last bit of energy. And he came out, and just, they put him like on my chest immediately, and then it took him about 5 seconds, and they started wailing, like he was so mad, like, oh my God, like I want to be back inside. And then he was on my chest, and both my husband and I just lost it. I was so incredibly just in love. If anyone has ever birthed, like, you just know that feeling when they're on your chest for the first time. It's phenomenal. Like, the feeling is euphoric. There's no explanation for it. And so they put him on my chest. Immediately, after he kind of calmed down, he looked up at me, like eye contact, and I was just head over heels. And so then the nurse took him a little, like, they had to take him just for a second to dry him off, just because they don't want him too cold. And as she took him real quick, he, like, grasped onto my fingers and was, like, did not want to be parted from me. And that was, like, the connection of, he's mine, I'm going to protect him. Like, anything in this world comes near him, Mama's going to go after him. And they put him back on me, and we just stared eye to eye, like, it was just me, my husband, and Jaden, and it was the most amazing moment in my life. then he started rooting, and he was ready to nurse, and within a couple minutes he was nursing, and so he was on my chest nursing for about an hour. Calm as can be, just looking up, so alert. He was so alert, like looking around the room like, wow, what is this place? And then after the hour, they did all the measurements and all the weights and things like that after we had our skin-to-skin time, and then she gave him to Daddy, and that was probably one of my second most favorite feelings, just seeing my husband hold our newborn. It was incredible. So yeah, that's my birth story. Obviously, like, I'm so emotional from it because there's parts of me that were like, what if, you know, or what if I didn't go to the hospital, or what if I did it somewhere else? And ultimately, like, I have so much peace. If my body truly wasn't dilating on medication or off medication, it's just how my body was going to respond, and I need to respect that. And at the end of the day, he's here healthy and he's here safe, and I did get the vaginal delivery I wanted, even though it wasn't unmedicated, and, you know, all those things about medication affects the baby, the lactation, it's not healthy, you don't get the euphoric hormones afterwards, didn't pertain to me. I still got all of the euphoric hormones right after. My baby was super alert, we didn't have problems latching, so all those fears I truly had, or even getting induced or getting an epidural for getting a C-section, all those fears were erased because it didn't happen with me and my son. Not to say that there's not truth to it, but all my fears of doing it naturally or not being able to do it naturally didn't happen in my case, and he was here healthy. And I can honestly say laboring that 14 hours unmedicated was emotionally draining, emotionally the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but I gave it everything I had. 14 hours unmedicated is a really quite long time to go through labor without any help, but it was the way it was meant to happen, and I'm a firm believer everything happens for a reason, and I'm just so thankful for the experience that I was given, and to have a healthy son, and to be vibrant and alert. And, you know, when the doctors came in the next day, and my pediatrician actually got in tears, she was like, normally I'm not like this, but your baby is just very sweet-tempered. Like, I don't just say that. Calm. And I felt that the whole entire time when he was in my pregnancy, that he's just going to be a calm, stubborn baby, because he wasn't the most active baby, but he was just very calm in my belly, and his demeanor outside of the world is that, and he is so strong. He ended up rolling at 4 days over on our bed, and just at 6 days he ended up doing it twice on the hard ground. Whether that's a fluke or not, or he'll stop when he gains more weight, he's a strong-willed young boy, and I am so in love. I am so proud, and I would have not have been able to do it without my husband. He fought with me, he prayed with me, was by my side the whole entire time. I know it was really hard for him to watch me go through 14 hours of severe pain, because, you know, when your wife is screaming and there's nothing you can really do besides pressing in her hips and console her, he was a champ, and he's the MVP of the whole entire thing, and he stood by my side. He was my rock. He was the foundation to the whole entire labor, and I just remember him right before giving birth, like when I felt his head, he goes, "Babe, let's go, come on, like, let's go, look at him, he's almost here," and that just fired me up, and then he came out. So yeah, my birth story is beautiful in itself, because I plan to have I plan to know that things unexpectedly happen. I knew that birth, there's so many variables, there's so many things that can happen, and there's so many things that need to fall in the right place for it to really be the way you truly want it. But at the end of the day, it's still my perfect story, because my baby boy is here. And my body's recovering phenomenally well. Everything I did pre-pregnancy is paying off now. I feel amazing. I feel just, I honestly have never been happier, even though my emotions are up and down with the estrogen and progesterone dropping, or the progesterone dropping, the estrogen is going right up, and the night sweats, and my one emotional breakdown with milk on day 4. I'm truly the happiest. I just want to stare him all day. I just want to snuggle him all day. We love it. Me and my husband are cherishing every moment of the lack of sleep. I'm sticky all the time. Yes, the ladies they're massive. I was a double A before, and now I'm probably close to a large double D. They are massive and full, and I love them, but they hurt really bad. But I'll cherish them while I have them. And my body is just, it's a mom bod now, and I am so proud, and I have no intentions of getting back into the gym right now. We'll just cover them up a little bit. But I have no intentions of getting back in the gym right now. I want my body to heal naturally, because postpartum depression is real. I'm actually prone to depression, of my previous past life. And so I just want to take every precaution I can get to avoid that, taking my time, letting my body heal, cherishing these baby moments because I won't get them back, and he's only going to be a newborn for so long. And you guys, I cannot tell you just the incredible feelings that it has. And if you're not a mom and you're looking to be a mom, you won't know it until you experience it. And I can tell you, I can't wait for you to experience that first hold and the feelings you have. And whether your birth story happened the way you wanted it or didn't happen the way you wanted it, there's always healing, there's always growth. And look at the positive side, that your baby's here safe and sound and that they're with you. And that's the most positive thing, because at the end of the day, you want a healthy baby. And I'm just so thankful for that. And he was upstairs with me the whole time and helped me through that labor. And it truly was an experience you can't ever relive or get it back. So yeah, that was my birth story. Again, yeah, there's really no words can truly capture the emotions you feel and the progress you have with it. And so hopefully after this video, I'll do the reality of what's it like postpartum, things to expect, and then I'll show you guys my nursery and my must-haves as I'm still trying to figure out what they are and what works and what hasn't worked and what little Jay likes. And so that if that helps you guys out, let me know. And then also, if you guys want a video of like more products that I've used postpartum, like creams or pregnant mom brain creams, foods, nutrition, what I'm doing kind of postpartum to help recover, that'd be great. I almost am in the middle of getting my guide done. I wanted some postpartum stuff visually for you guys to put in the guide first, and touch up some of the things, and hopefully it'll be out super soon, as I firmly believe like what I did during my pregnancy is truly attributed to my fast recovery postpartum. So yeah, I hope I didn't make anyone cry or trigger anyone or made anyone feel inferior about their birth or whatever it may be, as your birth is unique to you, and no matter what, it's beautiful because you have a beautiful child in this world. So yeah, I thank you guys for listening. Again, thank you for all the love and support and your kindness. This community we've been building, I want to continue empowering women, empowering each other, and building that, because I think it's so important as mothers to support one another and not judge, as the judgment of moms, I'm learning, is so quick. So again, you guys are amazing. Thank you for loving on my beautiful baby boy and my family and my journey. I wouldn't be where I'm at today without all of the encouragement. So yeah, I actually might hear him crying right now, so I'm probably going to have to go put these milk jugs to use, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching.